We have a payments solution that we think is a better dealer experience, better seller experience. We've had £7.5 billion worth of transactions through that platform. No issues at all. That just gives you a sense of the volume of transactions that are going through that. And that includes small independent dealers all the way up to like very large dealers who are using it. So that's our preferred route. And to run that separate system costs us money. I have a separate operational team chasing invoices, managing all of that process, chasing down debt, etc., etc. And as the number of people using that goes down, that becomes more costly. And so £10 is covering that cost. We do not want people to be charged £10 a car. And to avoid that, we really want dealers to use our payment system. There are hundreds, thousands of cases of dealers using it and seeing the benefits in it. And so I really encourage those dealers who are frustrated by that to use Motorway Pay. It's very simple.
Hello everyone and welcome to episode 44 of DealerPod, the podcast where we talk to motor trade industry experts nationwide to find out about their businesses and gain any insights that they may have to help you with your car sales operation. My name's Stephen Douglas and as always I'm joined by Scott Sibley and Martin Carr, and today's podcast is sponsored by Dealerway, the UK's fastest growing platform for motor dealers to trade cars with other like-minded dealers. Now, before we jump into the episode, I'd really appreciate it if you could just hit that like button and the subscribe button and make sure you hit the notification bell as well so you never miss an episode, and it really helps us out putting these episodes out week after week. All right, now before we introduce this week's guest, let's do This Week in the Motor Trade.
This Week in the Motor Trade, brought to you by AutoGrab.
So, This Week in the Motor Trade, sponsored by our partners at AutoGrab. Now, I've personally been using AutoGrab myself over the past few months, and it enables me to buy stock direct from the general public from private listings that otherwise I may have missed. It's all in one user interface, and I think it's a fantastic bit of kit. And if you'd like to know more, then make sure you check out the YouTube description below and click the link through to their site. And if you sign up using that link, you get, and actually you mentioned DealerPod, you get a huge 25% off your first 3-month subscription. Okay, so this week in the motor trade, Scott, how have we been doing? Are we any busier? Is the wheels turning or what? What's happening?
I think it is busier. I think we're sat on about 44 on the 10th, so we're tracking well, and I think there's like 3 weeks to go. I mentioned the bank owed us a lot of money about 3 weeks ago, and they still do, so Santander, shout out to them.
Luckily, Scott, you've got about 400 million in the bank, so you're not going to miss that 40 grand or something.
You believe it, right? It's put a bit of strain on the job.
Like Monty Burns wouldn't miss 40 grand, would he? It's just that's how I sort of, I gauge you on.
Yeah, well, it's put a bit of strain on, and then I went this week down to the Motor Novo Conference and Awards Night, which was down at East Midlands Airport at the Radisson Blu, which was actually a good location for anybody having any conferences. It was easy for us from the northeast to get there because normally they're sometimes like quite difficult to get to. So we went down to that and seen a lot of car dealers who we know from up and down the country. Quite a few have been on the pod. So that was quite nice to have a catch up with people.
Just enough. It's just close enough to get a helicopter there without refueling.
The drive wasn't bad, actually. It was all right. I left at 6:30 in the morning as well. I was back at my desk for 10, so it was all right. And I was still at the bar at 1 o'clock. They didn't actually do Negronis, which I thought was a bit strange. And then behind the bar, I says, well, if you get gin, get vermouth and get Campari and put all in one glass, that's a Negroni. So they did that. And when I got my receipts at the end of the night...
You're the only person that would know that.
When I got my receipts at the end of the night, rather than charge you 15 quid for a shitty cocktail, they charged us for 2 measures of each one. So each drink I was drinking was about 45 quid or something like that.
How many did you have?
I think I had 4.
Enough for Santander to ring him.
Santander to ring, yeah.
Do you know there's people in Africa who walk for 7 miles to get water? For water. Yeah. And there's you dropping 45 quid on drinks.
Yeah, well, I didn't know I was until the next day. And I actually messaged a couple of dealers as well. I said, I'll have to get a few rounds in. I didn't realise they were going to be doing that at their hotel, but never mind. But it was good. It was good to catch up. We didn't win any awards. We weren't even shortlisted. All the names came up on screen and we weren't even there, which obviously you'll find hilarious.
How dare they? How dare they not have Redgate Lodge at top of the tree?
I know. Couldn't believe it. And there was people who were shortlisted who weren't even there.
Never.
At least I made the effort to drive down.
Oh, that's bad, like, isn't it?
Yeah, they weren't even there.
Never.
Well,
You're going to name and shame or not?
Who wasn't there? They've been on the podcast, some of them.
Oh, have they? Ooh.
Yeah.
You'll have to tell us off here.
Yeah.
Martin, how's Dealerway getting on? I think we've been busy, haven't we?
yeah, really busy. Yeah, up and up every week. So, like I said, last week was a record week. This week's another record week, or what's finishing. Some really good relations going on with some franchise dealers and big independents as well. So, yeah, constantly looking up.
Yeah, it's good, isn't it?
I think we sold 2 cars on there today,
You
Martin.
did, yeah, this morning, yeah.
We had 2 little cheap part exchanges in, which were like, I don't know, a couple £100, and I just thought, it's somebody else's little project, whether they can, whether this, split them for the engine or they fix them, and it's a little cheapy for somebody to run around in, and I put them on there, and they're sold straight away. So, I mean, they haven't been collected yet, but they are as they are, they're described, so it worked well. So it doesn't matter how cheap the car is, if anybody's watching this and you want to get, disposal, just put them on there, and you'll be surprised how well they do.
Lowest £200, and the most expensive so far is £97,000.
Good spread, isn't it?
There was I messaged a dealer because he put in a WhatsApp group. He had a Jag in, 2-litre Jag, which was a nice runner, 2-litre Ingenium engine, and I think the car was something like, he sold it for like £1,200 or £1,500, and I sent him a screenshot, and I said, if you put that on Dealerway, it would have done more, because there's so many people in the trade got those Jags and Evoques, and also with a 2-litre engine which is blown up, where that car alone was worth $2,000 or $3,000 just for the engine.
Well, I tell you what, there's been 2 cars in the last 24 hours that have been put on. I've got $7,000 against what the Auto Trader recommended retail is, and what the trader wants for their vehicle.
Really?
$7,000, 2 of them.
But what are they, Martin? What kind of cars?
A Subaru Forester with 21,000 miles on an 18 plate.
Really?
What a 12,995. Even trade, I think the trade price was $15,500 with a retail at $20,000. And then there was a Range Rover that had, he wanted $5,000 for it, and it was $12,500 to retail. So
is that Subaru no good to that? Who did you remember? Who had? I can't think of his name. What's he called? He's got the Subaru dealership in like Leeds area. Do you remember?
Tony Shasha.
Yeah.
Not be a little bit too old for him, I think.
yeah.
Would it be too old?
Possibly, aye.
Oh, we'll have a look at it.
Maybe he's worth mentioning, yeah.
Send him a message.
We've been busy recently, but then all of a sudden this week the taps went off. And I don't understand why. Struggling to get leads in, struggling to get approvals for them leads as well.
Really?
It's hard, aye.
You've been on fire for about 3 weeks, haven't you?
Been on fire for the last few months, aye. We've just can't buy cars quick enough.
Have you still got your C-Max?
The less we talk about the C-Max, the better.
You likes that C-Max, didn't he?
I think it's the wrong colour. It's definitely the colour. The Cadbury's
What colour is
purple.
it?
Cadbury's purple, which I quite like in a car. Cadbury's purple that Ford do.
Looks blue.
But apparently that like a Marmite, because a lot of the staff here says, oh no, I don't like that. But I think they're nice. In today's competitive used car market, staying ahead means finding the right stock at the right price every time. I use AutoGrab to do exactly that. With endless listings and constant market shifts, it's tough to know what's worth chasing, but AutoGrab cuts through the noise. Their platform shows me where the value is, lets me filter for high margin stock, and alerts me when the right cars hit the market. If you want better margins and smarter sourcing, head to autograb.co.uk today. Make sure you mention DealerPod when signing up to get 25% off your first 3-month subscription. Today's guest is quite an exciting one. So on DealerPod this week, we've got the current Chief Operating Officer of Motorway joining us today. So I'm delighted to welcome to the podcast, Mr. James Wilson. Hi, James. How's it going, mate? You okay?
Hello. Yeah, very good. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. Great to be here.
Yeah,
Good to be on.
great stuff. More than welcome. Obviously, me and you had a we're chatting for about an hour, weren't we? Good few months back.
Yeah.
I was giving you some feedback on Motorway. I'm going to give you a few more bits of tidbits today, no doubt.
I mean, I try to catch up with dealers very frequently, and that was when we spoke. It was a good example of that.
Yeah.
And it's just really helpful to kind of hear the direct feedback. Sometimes it's difficult, and I don't have all the answers, but it's really important for us to get that feedback from people using our platform.
Mm-hmm.
That's how we get better.
Well, exactly. Yeah, exactly. I'd mentioned I'd mentioned it on my Facebook group that you were coming on today, because we've got quite an active Facebook group. There's 13,500 dealers in there. And I was asking that I basically asked, has anyone got any questions that they'd like to put to James? So I've got quite a few questions in the bank to put to you. But before I get to that,
He's got his bat ready.
I've got my own. No.
Okay, I'm ready. I'm braced.
No, I'll tell you
Right,
what.
we'll leave you to it.
Let's go a bit easy to start with, James. Can you just tell the audience a little bit about yourself first and your background and how you got into the position that you're in?
Yeah, so I joined Motorway 4 years ago. I'd previously been working at Amazon, spent 8 years working in their marketplace, and I was looking to join a firm that was kind of earlier on in its growth. And I met Tom Leith, one of the co-founders of Motorway, now the CEO, and got chatting to him about what he was trying to achieve with Motorway, and was really excited about the mission that he was on, which is really around delivering great value for both sellers, private individual put their cars for sale on Motorway, and dealers. But in doing that, transforming the way that business is done within the industry. And I really like the way he talked about customers, actually. And he repeatedly talked about how he wanted to improve the experience both for sellers and for dealers. And for me, that's really exciting and energizing. So signed up to do the COO role, and it's been quite a wild journey since then. I mean, when I joined, we'd be really happy to have 300 cars for sale in our daily auction, and now we've got, I think we had in September, we had 2,200 on one day. So it's been an incredible growth journey, and we've had to build out the business to support that growth and to support our dealers who are buying increasingly large amounts of stock through our platform. And that's been really interesting and very fulfilling, actually, because I think we're delivering on what we set out to do, which is to, from a dealer perspective, get them access to high quality stock that they wouldn't ordinarily see through part exchange coming into their dealership. And that's where we get the really positive feedback. So I can get access to stock I wouldn't be able to get access to. And from day one, at least when you speak to Tom or to Harry or to Alex and the founders, one of the things that's been really important to us is to ensure that the way we present that stock to dealers who are buying it is to make sure we have really high quality profiles. So there's consistency in the way we present them to dealers. And I know some of the feedback we get is we can do better. And of course, we're constantly improving. But that's been something that we've continued to focus on over the years. And I think in the end, that's why we're growing and performing really well.
James, what would you say that your biggest challenge since you've came into the business has been?
Well, it's varied. So when I joined, we'd just done our first advertising campaign on the TV, and it was just at the tail end of COVID, and we literally couldn't answer the phones. If you remember back, 4 years ago, it was absolutely crazy. So that was my first challenge, which was how do we scale up the business, the operations, so that we can actually get the cars for sale. So we just had too much demand to handle. And over time, we've got much better at that, and we're much more capable in terms of our operations, which supports both our sellers and our dealers. I think the challenge for us is to ensure that we're delivering a consistent experience across every step of the process. So it starts with a seller contacting us saying they want to put their car for sale. But actually, as you know, there are multiple steps to getting that car sold and bought by the dealer. And once you start to get into it and understand those steps, you realize that within those steps, there's complexity that you have to work through. So I remember when I joined, we've always focused on getting good photography for the vehicles. We have 16 standard photos and then photos for damage and the condition of the vehicle. And we were manually checking every single photo before we put the car for sale. And if one photo was wrong, we would go back to the seller, call them up and say, you need to retake that photo. And we had millions of resubmissions we were doing. Mm-hmm. And that's where we started to use tech. So we started to use some AI, actually. This was three and a half years ago, where when that seller's taking the photo, we run that in the background to check the quality of that photo, make sure it's aligned with our standards. And that means the seller has a much better experience. It means we aren't doing as many calls and chasing of sellers for the photography. And it means that it's quicker, getting into the sale quicker for the dealer as well. And that's just one example of one step, which seems really easy. It's like, oh, you just use the app and you just take the photos and it all just works. But behind the scenes, there's lots of stuff going on that makes that as easy as possible, whether that's for the seller or for the dealer. And so I think it's consistently delivering in every step of the journey. And I'm sure some of the feedback, some of the questions we'll get will be around, particularly around the post-sale experience. So once that you've gone through the auction, picking up that vehicle, and that step is a really challenging step. Yeah. Because that's when you're bringing together the dealer, possibly a driver who's collecting the car on their behalf, and the seller, and they're inspecting the vehicle and making sure that's as easy as possible and as straightforward as possible for all the parties is a big focus of ours. We still haven't completely cracked it, but that's something we've worked on over the years. And I think we've got better at it, but we're by no means done.
Mm-hmm. I'm interested in hear your views of what the future holds, and because you are right. I think a lot of the questions that maybe I've got for you and some of the community feedback that I've heard is around that, because that is the most manual part, isn't it? I suppose. Yeah,
it is. I mean, it's when we've invested quite heavily to build solutions to support dealers at that point as well. So ones that spring to mind. So we launched Pay, I think it was now 2-3 years ago, and that's been very successful. And I've sat opposite a lot of independent dealers who've told me, James, we don't need it. We've got our own process. It all works. And then I've said, look, give it a go. Just try it out. And they've tried it out. And they're like, actually, this has made my life a lot easier. I don't have to chase down I don't have to set up all the payments. It just works. It works really nicely. And so that's one example where we've tried to make it easier at that step, because what we heard was from dealers and sellers, it's difficult. So dealer tries to make a payment, doesn't go through, seller gets frustrated, dealer might even take the car away, the seller's waiting for the payment. Those kind of things are very, very problematic for all parties, and it just creates loads of backwards and forwards, and it's just painful. So we can take that away with Pay. We actually just earlier this year added Next Gear as a funding solution, which I know many independents are using. So we've got hundreds of dealers using that now to fund the payments directly from their NextGear account. We've got LE Capital launching in a couple of weeks, so there'll be another option for dealers who either have a partnership with LE Capital or want to sign up to use LE Capital to fund their purchases. So that's another example. And then on transport, we invested in tech to help on that inspection. So one of the things we heard again from dealers and sellers is, I've looked at the profile with all those photos I talked about earlier, and when I get to the car, I don't have that in front of me, or I've looked at it before I get in the car just to check it, and then by the time I can do the inspection, I'm spotting more damage, but I can't remember whether it's on the profile or not. So we built this app, Collect, which enables you to see, if you use our transport system, the original profile and any additional damage that's been added, and you can make an adjustment accordingly. So trying to bring more transparency to that step and more confidence for dealers that they're getting what they paid for. And if they're not, they can make the right adjustment to the price for the additional damage that they may find.
You see that app that you mentioned there, the Collect piece. Yeah. Obviously, that sounds exactly what I would be looking for as a user of Motorway. But obviously, I'm aware that I've got to go through the use your collection thing to get that. Is there any plans in the future to? You knew you were going to get this question, didn't you? To release that to a dealer. So like I've got a couple of drivers who work on my behalf, and it would be nice to have that system, because obviously we are turning up at customers. Sellers' houses, and there is issues arising with cars, and then we've obviously got to go through the process of trying to either negotiate or cancel the sale, and then obviously we've then got to feed that information back to you. I just feel like as part of the Motorway app, to use that would be a lot more professional for us and for the customer, and it would be a lot easier to feed it back to yourselves.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely something we're looking at, and it's one of the things in our long list of improvements that we want to make. So I can't make any promises about launching it or when it will launch, but it's definitely something we're looking at. A big focus is at that moment. So we know, as I said earlier, that's where you see difficult moments for dealers and sellers. And if we can provide more transparency, and that app is a good way to do it, we will certainly, invest behind that. At this point, I can't commit to saying what we're going to specifically do, but it's definitely one of the things we're looking at. And I think one of the things that's interesting to hear your feedback on actually is how open dealers would be to using it, and how they would think about the benefits of that kind of app. Because for us, we can build it, but if it's not being used, that's going to be a challenge for us.
I think it makes perfect sense for anyone that's buying, especially anyone that's buying 10 plus cars a month of volume of cars per month from the Motorway platform. I think they'd be crazy not to use that. It just keeps everything in order, doesn't it? And everything on the same platform. I just think it's more professional as well. When you turn to a customer's house, if the driver's got an iPad and he's going around doing a proper inspection on an iPad, rather than just using his eye and then getting on a phone call to his boss or whatever. I just think it's a lot more streamlined, and in all honesty, I think it would help with, because there's a lot of occasions where we're turning up at people's doors and there's issues with the cars that haven't been in the listings. I think it would help us fight our corner against the sellers to say, well, look, here's what was in the original listing, and here's what I found in a direct comparison, to show the customer that. I'll give you examples, James. We've sent drivers to collect vehicles hundreds and hundreds of miles from a customer's house, and we've slated the car, in comparison to what was in the listing, and we've tried to negotiate with the seller, and they've says, oh yeah, I'm not moving, that's it. But I think if we had some sort of tool that literally like for like, to show, well, look, this is what you put, this is what we've found, how can you sit on the price with I think it would be perfect.
I hear you.
I don't know about you, Scott. I mean, Scott buys probably more than us off Motorway.
Yeah.
We use, I don't actually go on Motorway, but we do buy lots of cars through Motorway, but the buyers obviously use it daily. I've never actually logged on. So there'll be features on there which I don't actually know about, but we use Dragon for our software, and they have a thing called Appraise. So our drivers carry iPads, and they, as far as I'm aware, I think the buyers email the driver the report of the car they're going to buy with the details, contact details and all that kind of stuff. So they know what they're going to arrive to view. And then our drivers, they photograph, because they take the car out for a drive as well. So they'll photograph the clocks with the mileage on. Then they'll take it for a drive, and then they re-photograph the clocks with the mileage, which proves to us that the driver's actually driven the car, which is good, and also that the miles are actually clocking up, so there's no mileage blocker on there. And then they'll photograph any additional damage. So when they then speak to our buyers and say there's more damage on this car, our buyers just log on to the Dragon system, and it brings it up on the screen. And then the buyer, our buyer then tells to our driver and says, well, there's 500 quid worth of additional damage there. The driver then tells the customer and says, look, you haven't said about this, that, and that, and there's 500 quid off. And it's only when the seller's awkward where our buyer would then have the conversation with the seller over the phone and say, and try to explain or talk them round. But some of them obviously don't, divulge the full information. Some of them will say, well, that was on when I bought the car, so I didn't bother telling you, or they don't understand what a dealer's standards are to put the car on the forecourt for sale. Or they might say there's 2 wheels damaged and there's actually 4, but you get that in the auctions as well. Sometimes, it can happen with the auctions when we ring the auction. So you mark 2 wheels but not 4. Why haven't you put 4? And then they say, well, it doesn't change the grading system, so you're on your own. But it's hard when you're buying blind. I
think the way we built the Collect app was to try and make sure it goes back to that original profile. Yeah. And so, because we heard what you just described, Scott, which is, people will use other drivers and other systems, and they'll have a completely different report that they get sent. So you're a buyer, you get sent typically like a PDF, and it's a completely new report.
Yeah, that's what we do. Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't correspond back to the original report. You're like, okay, how do I make these two things fit? And that can lead to problems both ways. And I think this idea of having transparency of this is what was said, this is what we found, and bring those two things together, I think is really important. The other point I'd add, which I often say to dealers when I have these conversations with them, is we can help as well. I have a team, and this is what kind of frustrates me a little bit. dealers don't realize I have a whole team whose job is to help at this point. They're our sales support team. They are there. If it's kicking off with a seller or getting uncomfortable with the seller in this conversation, calling us up, they can help arbitrate and be a independent party to say, well, let's look at what's been found, and let's help support the dealer at that moment. And so I'd encourage dealers to call in, and we have very, very tight SLAs to answer the phone quickly, because we know it's a really critical moment. And by the way, it's in our interest to make sure that transaction happens in the right way for both parties.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's one thing. One thing I'd say, and that for me is another thing that I would just encourage dealers to consider.
I don't see. I hear what you're saying. I just don't see how that would help in that situation.
In my eyes, that'd be more tangible. So it's not the dealer that's turned up at the doorstep who's going, look, blah blah. This is, you know what I mean. It's the dealer and the customer. Whereas if Motorway then gets involved and Motorway's on the phone and you're providing the information to Motorway, but that's where the app comes in. You're providing the information to Motorway. That's then tangible, and it's coming from Motorway.
It depends on the situation for sure. But what I've heard, because I've listened to calls, is when it does happen, it's often explaining to the seller, this is part of the process, right?
Yeah.
So by the way, we have communicated it to the seller that there will be an inspection on collection, right? And again, one of the things I do think we want to re-examine is whether we can be more clear in that to make sure that expectation is set, which, by the way, would encourage sellers to list more of that damage earlier on in the process, if there is damage that they're not declared in the first instance. But they can have that conversation and say, look, if there's additional damage, the dealer is within their rights to ask for an adjustment, because they have to make that car retail ready. Mm-hmm. And they're hearing that from a Motorway, a third party who is not trying to buy the car, who is not making direct margin off that car. And I think it just is an independent voice, and it can smooth the conversation. So, as I say, it's an option for dealers, and I would encourage them to try it and see if it's effective. And it's on us, on me and my team, to make sure we're as helpful as possible in those conversations.
My only concern around that, and I hear what you're saying, is obviously we'll have, because we'll buy lots of cars off your platform, off CarWow, off our own platform, and we've got drivers out every day all over the country. And if we think that it's not going to fly when we've sent someone from Newcastle to Birmingham, we'll immediately try and in the background look for where have we got a next car, how far are you away from the next car, and the driver wants to get home for his tea.
Yeah, that's
and it's like,
I think that's the other issue.
The time that it takes to get you guys on the phone, get involved, where we could have booked him on a next train to his next job or whatever, and it's just logistically it's difficult. Having done it myself during COVID, having gone to people's houses to do this driver's or inspector's job, time is of an essence. Traffic, depending on where you are, you want to get there, inspect the car, right? I'll have it and be away. Mm-hmm. You can't really waste your time, especially if you've got enough time to go and you've got another car that you could potentially go to, so it's not a wasted day. But I hear what you're saying.
All I'd say is, if you're going to have to walk away from the car for the cost of a couple of minutes to call us up and say, look, I'm having difficulty with this customer, can you speak to them on my behalf? This is what I found. If that saves the deal and helps you, it's worth that 2 minutes. I get that 100% time is of the essence. My background, by the way, is that I used to run a logistics business within Amazon. So I understand the importance of and the challenges of aborting a job and rescheduling and finding the next job and making sure that drive is being utilized. But I think for a couple of minutes, I would encourage people to make that effort and see if it can help. One of the things that we're really focusing on is ensuring that when you call through, we've got the right team set up and focused on this specific area. So we have a dedicated team that supports for these difficult moments, because we know it does happen, and it doesn't happen all the time, but it does happen, and we need to make sure we're supporting our dealers at that moment and our sellers as well.
I was going to say, obviously a lot of the feedback is that sometimes dealers feel that Motorway is more gauged towards the customer, the consumer, as opposed to the dealer, and maybe they don't know about this team that you've set up to sort of engage with them.
Yeah, I think there's definitely what we can do it's partly why I'm on the podcast, to explain what support we can provide. And I think one of the actions actually coming out of this from my side is to make sure we're clear in explaining that the process I just described. I mean, there are other activities we undertake that I get frustrated about because dealers don't think we're working on your behalf, but we are. So, for example, another thing that will come up, I'm sure, is when dealers bid on a vehicle above reserve and sellers don't confirm. They
nightmare.
Yeah. So, and I understand the frustration. So we have a team who are contacting every single customer who hasn't immediately confirmed to chase them on behalf of the dealer. And we're using multiple channels because it's not as simple as just calling. You won't always get through. So we're using WhatsApp, we're using SMS, we're using calls. And I think one of the frustrations is I don't think dealers know that we're doing that on their behalf. So they're like, what's going on? And I think one of the things we need to do is be more transparent in that. So we've started to do some communications around that to make sure it's clear. Hey, we're on it. We're chasing, and we're on those calls encouraging the seller to accept the offer because it's above reserve. It's a market price, and it's a good price because we've had the whole marketplace working to get to that price.
The only feedback I can give on that is I've personally used the Motorway system to dispose of a vehicle. And in my example, it was a Golf Estate, and I'd listed it, done all of the thing on the app, had the phone call to say, look, let's go through the damage again. They readjusted the price. And I'd actually said at the time going, I think that car is worth more than that. And I was encouraged by the representative to put the vehicle on because I don't have to sell it, even if it does go above the figure that they've given us a guide price, that I don't have to sell that vehicle.
We've changed. So I hear you. So we've changed that scripting on the back of direct dealer feedback. And so we make it clear and transparent now. I don't know when you saw that car. That
yesterday.
You
didn't.
It had a knackered engine as well.
It's about 6 months ago. Yeah, gearbox was knackered. Stephen wouldn't have it.
No, we've changed that messaging to make it more clear to sellers that our expectation is you will accept above reserve. Now, that there is not a legal obligation for the audience. That there isn't a legal obligation to accept, right? There isn't. But what I've tried to direct our team to communicate when they're talking to sellers about the pricing for that reserve price is if a seller's placing a bid, they are above reserve in particular, their assumption is that that's going to be accepted and they've allocated cash to that vehicle. And there is a consequence for them if that car doesn't then go through because they've got to go and find another car. And so to help sellers understand the consequences of their actions and therefore improve their commitment to the sale. Now, so we've made that change. And again, we've made this change in response to dealer feedback on this very topic. So, and again, it's one of those things that's happening. Perhaps we need to be more transparent about that with our dealers to communicate some of the changes we're making. And we will continue to test different approaches in the coming weeks and months to address that area specifically. So we know about these issues and we hear the feedback. There's not a silver bullet that's going to solve this problem. It's a combination of things that together, I think, will help provide dealers with more confidence through the steps of the process that they need to work through.
I think when we came down to the conference when we met, James, I think we were speaking to one of your team. We said, was there not something what you could do where you would, maybe give an offer to the seller where you said like an early bird offer or claim your voucher if you confirm this car within a certain time period. They got like an M&S voucher or something like that.
Sure.
Where would hook people more to get it confirmed and get the deal on.
Yeah, there's a number of different ideas around this that we're kind of exploring, and dealers have talked about putting down deposits, pre-inspections. There's a number of different ways we could work on this, and we're considering them. They're not without their pros and cons, because you'll have some people who'll do that, some that won't, and you might find that the people who are committed who will always going to commit will commit.
Yeah.
Right. So what you're actually trying to do is get that small percentage. It's not a ginormous percentage, but that small percentage who don't commit, don't confirm above reserve to confirm, and how do you change their behaviour, right? And to what extent were they committed on day one? not convinced on day one, they were just kicking the tires. That's the thing that you've got to zone in on that segment and try and improve that performance.
The thing is, though, I think you're missing the point on that, though, James, because I think you're not trying to make those people commit. You're trying to weed out those people. See, from a dealer's, at the end of the day, Motorway is a business, right? And Motorway needs to get as many cars on that platform as they possibly can, because the more cars they've got, the more chance they've got of selling them and the more money they make. Now, it's a little bit contradictory sometimes on the dealer's behalf, because as a dealer, like in an ideal world for me, and obviously, I know there's loads of negatives surrounding this for a company like Motorway, because it would cost you an absolute fortune probably to implement. But in an ideal world, every single car that goes on the platform wouldn't be inspected by the customer themselves, it would be inspected by Motorway. Motorway would send someone out of the house, they would take all the photographs, they'd do a video walk around, they'd provide a full 128-point inspection, do a full report, and that stand by that's what the car is. And every customer would leave a deposit to say, yes, I'm going to sell this car. If it reaches this reserve, take £250 out of my account and I'll get it back. Or if I sell the car, whatever. That would be unbelievable for a dealer. But I realise as a dealer that Motorway as a business probably couldn't stomach that. It would cost a lot of money, a lot of investment, a lot of staff costs and what have you. But that would be the ultimate goal as a dealer, because like you said before, not all dealers have this endless pot of money. So when they've won 6 auctions in a day, there might be 60, 70 grand's worth of cars that they've won. And they need to think, well, right, I can't buy any more cars tomorrow because I've only got 60 grand in the bank and I need to buy these cars. And then, but from a dealer's point of view, I'll tell you what happens now, and you're probably well aware, but out of the cars that we win, if we win 10 cars in an auction, I only assume that I'm going to buy 5 or 6 of them, because that's the way it works.
On the flip side, if you bid 30 cars, if you bid on 30 cars and you end up winning 30 cars,
you got a problem.
Do you mean you've overcommitted?
I totally get that. I totally get it. But the way I bid now is because the way I know the platform works. I know I'm not going to get those 30 cars. But if it was working in a different way, I probably wouldn't bid as much as what I am.
We're the same. If we got all of ours we bid on, we'll probably spend £1 million quid in an afternoon.
The most I've bid on in one day is 37 cars, and I won 1.
Wow.
Yeah.
How much more would you pay for that, Stephen?
How much more? I don't want to have to pay for it. I'm already paying enough
per inspection.
I think you'd get a better response on those vehicles if you listed them vehicles and said these have been certified by Motorway. I think the customer would get a better response. Yep. Plus, from a dealer's perspective, you'd be looking at it going, I'm actually probably going to win that car because the customers come out of their way to go and get them examined.
I'm going to go £100 a car extra.
Like I said, I think the customer will get a better return. Like I said, I think dealer. I mean, obviously, one of the topics is always going to be how much money is charged for
customer gets less, Martin. Because us dealers, we work retail back, so we've got the motorway fee, we've got the extra 100 I've just said, and then so the customer's getting less.
But I generally think though them cars will achieve more because they've been looked at via Motorway.
No, I know what you mean. Because the confidence thing.
100% it would.
The thing is, James, to put you in a picture, so on average in a month now, because we're buying so many cars from Motorway, so many cars from CarWow, Dealerway, and all the rest of them, now every single month I spend over $2.5, sometimes $3,000 a month on walking away from vehicles. So as a cost to a business now, because because of Motorway, because of CarWow, don't get us wrong, I'm an advocate. I love the platforms. I buy a lot of cars from it. Makes us a lot of money, and I'm all for it. But as a user, we've got issues. No, I'm not too choosy. We're walking away. I mean, yesterday, for example, right? We had 3 cars to collect yesterday. We walked away from 2 of them off Motorway. Now, one was in Birmingham, and one, I can't remember where the other one was. But I sent drivers out all over for them. And I'll tell you what, I'm gonna show you something just as a live example, right? And again, don't take this. This isn't a slander against Motorway. It's not, because I love the platform, I really do. But
he got that in there.
So this is a car that we went to see yesterday. So the driver turned up, and this car was described as having no paintwork issues. So obviously, as you can see,
just wants to bump a local, that George.
I'm sure it does. Yeah. So
a bit black polish, bit shoe polish.
Definitely a bit more than that, right? So if you have a look at the next picture, obviously that's what sort of the alignment on the car should be like, and it was fine on one side. When you get the other side, seen that?
Just wants a bit of adjustment, that bonnet, just a couple of screws to one side. 2-minute job there.
Right, but if you actually look on the bit on the listing, what I've took here, so seller confirmed no tyre issues, seller confirmed no damage to the passenger front corner bumper. Like that's what we're up against, James, and this is every day.
How much was the transport fee?
I don't off the top
What
of
you
my head,
lost?
I don't know, but I'd imagine it's going to cost us north of £200.
So would that customer not negotiate based on that damage, or were you too far away altogether?
The customer probably would. However, we also found a few other issues with the car, and
Right.
it was good. You know, we'd end up trying to chip the customer over £1,000. And at that point, I don't have my own workshops, unlike you, Scott. So I'm not looking to buy in all that work. You know, I need cars that have got, you know, minimal prep that are ready to go, which is why I bid accordingly on certain cars on platforms. You know,
Because we've been close where we've thought like we're going to blow 200 quid or 250 quid if we had bought this collection.
I get that.
Or do we just like take the pain? The people aren't going to negotiate where they come away empty, or do we swallow 200 quid out the deal? So sometimes we'll make that decision and then come back, and you're not coming back happy.
And I've done that.
Yeah,
I've done that, but the problem is it becomes too frequent, too often, and them 200 quid start adding up. You know.
So look, I hear the feedback. We're aware of it, and we need to improve the service in these areas. I don't have the. I'm not going to say we're going to do this, this, and this, and this. It's just not how we operate. We need to work out exactly what the priorities are and how we phase and plan those things. But we know that we've got to get better in these two areas: seller confirmation on the sale, and then at the doorstep, or damage identification as well. Actually, is the suspicious part of it. So we know that those are challenges. And we're working on them. Is all I can say. And I hear the feedback, and that's an area we're going to focus on.
I think it's going to be one that you never fix, really.
The thing is, without sending without sending a motorway, someone that you guys employ to go out and inspect the vehicle correctly before the car's listed, how can you possibly solve that issue? It's impossible.
I think even then, though, you'll still have the issue. Because damage is one person's perception. Sorry, James.
Yeah. No, sorry, Wilson. I think we can narrow the issue. There will always be some issues. I mean, and I think what you've got to look at is the net balance between the good stuff that you've got through Motorway, and it's a lot of it, against some of the challenges. And that's, as a business person, that's what you've got to weigh up, and you've got to say, does the trade-off make sense for me? And we have to earn the right. We have to get to a place where it does always make sense for us. That's our aspiration, right? We know that our goal is to help you grow profitably. If you're not growing profitably through using our platform, you won't use us. And
exactly. Yeah.
You shouldn't use us, right? As a business, just purely from a business perspective. So we know that we've got to improve in these areas. There isn't, as I said, there's not a silver bullet. It's a complicated issue, as Martin said, but we are focused on it, and I promise we are working towards solutions on this. Am I going to click my fingers and solve it tomorrow? No, I'm not. So we need a bit of time to try and address these things. And as I said, it will be a multi-pronged effort to improve the process. And you know, our track record demonstrates we've improved the process over time. We have made, in the 4 years that I've been here, I've seen a huge improvement in the way we
definitely have. Yeah,
we support
I'd agree.
Sellers and dealers, and I think that's what I would lean back on or use as confidence for our dealers that, look, we've made a lot of progress. We know that we were not done, and we're going to continue staying focused on improving the experience for the dealers that are using our platform.
A quick message from our sponsors, Dealerway. Attention, DealerPod listeners. Do you want a better, quicker, more profitable way of trading out of your part exchanges or overage stock? List your cars on Dealerway today and connect with over 2,000 vetted trade buyers actively looking for vehicles. No hidden fees, no hassle. Start your own custom auctions from your desk or the palm of your hand in our game-changing app. Or advertise your stock on quick, easy, buy-it-now listings to our eager buyers who are waiting to quickly acquire vehicles. What are you waiting for? Join Dealerway today at dealerway.co.uk and streamline your disposals. Can you tell us anything that you have got in the pipeline that you are going to be releasing that is going to help certain aspects, or is everything under wraps?
Not on this stuff specifically. But as I said, we're
Just
considering
anything across the board that's maybe coming that you could share with.
Well, the early cap. I'm excited about the early capital funding solution, because what we found when we launched Next Gear is a whole bunch of dealers have been using it. Hundreds of dealers are using it, and they're typically more likely to be independents. And it's funding the whole transaction, so it covers the car as well as all the fees, and it just makes it much easier for those dealers to transact through the platform.
I'm not excited about it, James, I must admit.
Why not? Why not?
Because, well, I don't use funding, and I'm now going to have
He's
to...
money bags.
I'm now going to have to bid against more people who are using funding that's not their own money, who think it's monopoly money, and then they overbid for cars and they make the cars dearer.
Stephen, personal with me or with Motorway, it's with your fellow dealers.
No, I know that. I know. I'm
taking up with them. Taking up with them. But I think it will. I'm excited about that one, because we know there's a decent number of dealers who are already using Motorway, who are also early capital customers. So it helps. It just smooths the wheels, makes it easier for them just to get those vehicles purchased quickly and efficiently, get them into the forecourt, get them sold. Get the days to sell down.
No, I think it'll be positive for you.
You know, when you have a consumer putting the car on Motorway and then also on CarWow, the same car, and we find this quite often. Is there anything you can do about that, or is it like it's just a battle every day trying to do it, or can you do some kind of an exclusivity offer for the seller that they make sure they just put on one platform? Or
I think it's seller choice. The way that we get that exclusivity is convincing sellers that we've got a great proposition for them, and it's going to deliver a great price for them, but it's also going to be a really simple, straightforward process, which comes back to what we've just been talking about, right? It's not just the dealers, it's the sellers that want to have a really quick and efficient process, and that's what we need to. If we do a great job on that, we'll get more sellers coming to us and just using us. That's how we're going to grow. It's how we grow, and it's how we're going to continue to grow.
I've found that, because obviously I come up against that quite a bit as well. But every day, we're pricing cars up on Motorway, cars up on CarWow, and a few other competitors. And if I see the same car on two different platforms, we'll just bid the exact same amount on both platforms, being honest, James. And that way, if whether we're winning on one or the other, the customer then has to choose where they're selling it, so I don't miss the car. But we've seen it a few times where we've bid the same amount, and we've won the car on one platform, and then they've been bidding an extortionate amount on another platform. We've lost it, and then we've lost the sale on both. But again, what can James and his team do with that? It's your hands are tied behind your back. You can't hold a gun to these customers' heads, can you? No,
it's competition, and the answer is we need to make sure we've got a really compelling proposition for sellers, which I think we do, by the way. But continually improving it. Like you can't rest on your laurels. You have to constantly push to make it better. And as I said, a lot of the stuff that we've talked about that will make it better for dealers will make it better for sellers. And if we can get that working, so it is great for dealers and great for sellers, we'll have a really healthy marketplace. We'll continue to grow, and we'll have happy customers.
James, can I move on to some of the questions that I mentioned earlier that we've had from... I haven't even started yet.
I haven't even started on them ones.
Okay. I'm ready.
What are you having for tea?
Well, a couple of people have mentioned the same thing, so I'll run through a couple of them first before I ask you. So Danny Bond, who's a motor dealer from Leeds, who we've had on the podcast, who's a great lad, he's asked, why are you giving sellers false hope with inflated prices? And another dealer along the same lines, Martin Miller, again, who's been on the podcast, who's another great car dealer, sells a lot of prestige stuff. Ask him where they get the prices from. So obviously this seems to be like a common theme. So how does Motorway come up with a reserve price on a vehicle? Is it Motorway? Is it the customer? How does it work?
Okay, so it's not the customer. We have now sold well over 500,000 cars through our platform. And so we know what the likely outcomes are going to be on vehicles. And we've built our own proprietary pricing model that takes all of that data. It also takes some third-party inputs, like CAP. It will take that in as another source of data. And it will compute a specific price for a specific vehicle based on the outcomes that we've seen historically and what we expect. And so it's generated in that way. So a customer gets that initial valuation. We will, when they put in their reg and their mileage, They will then profile the vehicle, provide some information on condition of the vehicle. We will then reprice that based on the condition of the vehicle to bring it down. So that initial price, we don't know the condition of the vehicle, and that's what goes in as a reserve price. That's our process. Yes, I hear this feedback. Every dealer would like the prices to be lower, but that's how we do it. And it's a scientific process using our extensive database that we've built over the years for the specific platform that we have. So that's how we do it.
Well, we'll not be better off just giving every customer the cap valuation of the car and then letting the auctions go wild.
So first of all, cap is not a good measure of how our auction will work. Cap is not using our auction data. No one else in the market has our auction data, which is a very different auction to the standard auctions. This is a consumer to business auction, so that's why we're using our proprietary data, right? Okay. And so that's why we don't just use cap. And by the way, I've spoken to many dealers who've told me cap is not the right benchmark to use it anyway. So
no, I'd sort of half agree with that. Yeah,
Stephen, can I ask you, based on that, how many cars would you say are overinflated? Based on the question what we got asked in the group, is it the majority, or is it just a few, or is there any kind of pattern?
I genuinely believe, bear in mind I'm on Motorway and CarWow, and they're like every single day looking at cars. I think every single car, every reserve price on Motorway is far more than what the car would start at BC or Mannheim or the cap price. I mean, cap, like you mentioned, James, you may as well throw it out the window. It's just.
But BC and Mannheim have not got the same stock. They've not got private individual stock, right?
No. I totally.
So
they're still the same cars, though. They're still the same cars.
I think they have different usage profiles. So, irrespective of that, you may think that, Stephen, but actually the results we see, many cars are beating reserve, and and so I think what we need to remember is we've got thousands of dealers who are looking at these vehicles who will have different pricing
models,
different pricing, pricing levels across in their dealership compared to yours, because they know this car is going to be hot for their customers. They know their local customers really, really well, and they'll bid against that. And so that's the kind of marketplace working. And the positive of that is that dealer that really wants the car and has got a customer lined up to take it, or has very high confidence they're going to take it, they can win that car. And in the past, they would never see that car because that car's up in another location in the country, and it'd be very difficult for them to get that as part of exchange. You just wouldn't see it. And so these are the kind of the puts and takes of a marketplace that we have. But I think overall, it's better for dealers because you're getting access to this stock that you wouldn't see and be able to win in the past. And that's why we exist, and that's why we're growing. And yes, there are things we can definitely do better, but many dealers are using us and the usage is increasing. And I think that's because overall they're getting a better experience.
Give you an example of something I've obviously got cars in my shortlist from today. There's not many in there that fit my profile today. I mean, but like I was looking at a Golf GT TDI, and the cap clean price on the car was $7,500. Now, Auto Trader retail, and I don't even use Auto Trader, I'm just using off a benchmark, but Auto Trader retail was 97. But yet the reserve on the car was 84. And I'm like, I don't understand. By the time you've paid your motorway fee and you've sent your delivery driver, I just don't understand how anyone's making money at that. And the car had a good few bids on it as well. So, knowing it like I do, I'd imagine that it's going to meet its reserve and probably more the amount of bids that it had on. It just baffles me what some of these dealers are making out of vehicles that give them.
But are they paying the money? Are they paying the hammer price to you, or they're going there and negotiating with a customer and going down, knocking everybody down?
This is it. And that was going to bring into one of me questions was that there's a growing thing from the dealer community who think there's a lot of dealers on there bidding just astronomical prices in order to go to the car and kick the customer in the nuts, which is detrimental to Motorway's brand, really, when you think about it, because you don't want that. And it's stopping other dealers, genuine dealers who would have went out and bought that car and paid the fair money for it. What are your thoughts on that?
So first of all, I don't think it's as broad as you suggested. We've definitely seen instances of it, and we've taken action on those dealers. And that's included some larger dealers, not just small ones. which, by the way, creates a lot of blowback.
I can imagine.
But I've always been of the view the vast majority of dealers are great dealers, and we want them to be winning cars and building their businesses with us. There is a very small minority who are not operating in a way that is fair to those other dealers. And when we spot that behavior, we will warn those dealers. But if they don't change their behavior, we don't want them on our platform. It's very simple.
Yeah.
And by the way, we are very careful about how we think about that, because it's very difficult to ensure you're using the right information to make those decisions. So we don't jump to conclusions, but when we see patterns that are clearly not the right behavior, we will act on it. And we have a whole bunch of systems, again, in the background that we're using to assess that kind of behavior. Yeah, and it's the same thing, by the way, with cancellations. We've had I've had a whole bunch of blowback on that, but we've seen situations where the cancellations are through the roof. There is no way that is justifiable, and it's not going to work for that dealer. It's not going to work for us. So we've taken action there. And again, I know that there'll be independent dealers listening to this who maybe be on the receiving end of that, are very cross about it. But we will not have people who are not behaving the right way on our platform, because it's to the detriment of the good dealers.
Yeah.
And we want the good dealers winning, because they should do, right? Because they're behaving in the right way and playing by the rules. So again, these are things that we are aware of. We're working on those in the background. We're also we're thinking about how we can make that more transparent. We ask sellers, we ask sellers for feedback on dealers. I have a channel in front of me, and I just have every day, I can see every single feedback that comes in. And they range from, this dealer was absolutely fantastic. They came, they were really great to talk to. They were a pleasure. I had one really lovely bit of feedback, which was very touching. It was a bereavement sale, and the dealer, it was an independent dealer, was aware of that. We'd made them aware of that, and they came with a bunch of flowers, right? And the seller was like, they were incredibly touched by that, and they did a fantastic job. So we have the incredible positive reviews, and then we have one or two that will pop up, and it's like, okay, this is clearly something we need to pick up. And we have a team that will then engage with the dealer to understand their perspective on it, because it's not just seller says and therefore we act, but we want to try and understand if there's a consistent set of behaviors that doesn't align with the values of our marketplace. So we're aware of it. I don't think it's a huge issue, but it's something we're aware of and we're acting on.
In terms of, obviously, you're looking at things to give back to dealers and what have you. You've got this comprehensive database now of vehicles that you've seen going through the auction. Is that something that potentially, like Auto Trader's got with Dealer Portal, where a dealer can pop a registration number in and a mileage, and they get the motorway figures as a guide price of what they believe?
We haven't built that. Actually, we haven't built a pricing tool like that. There's one for me to take away. We've got the insights section on Pro, which has information about sold vehicles. So you can go in there and you can look at vehicles, what they've sold for, highest, lowest. You can actually look at the individual. I'm just looking at it now. You can go in and look at individual vehicles and get the sold prices. So that was one of the things we did in response to some dealer feedback, which again, I think has been helpful for some dealers. Not every dealer is using it, but certainly something we can explore, because we've got the data now.
Well, one question I've got here from a dealer called Rich Wilson. I don't actually know him, but he's in the group, and he's asked, if you don't use Motorway Pay, you have to pay an extra £10 per transaction. He asked why, and he says, and how can they charge this fee and be compliant with the FCA? I don't know anything about that. Card fees are no longer charged, and you can imagine a dealer. And can you imagine a dealer charging a customer for paying cash and not using their finance?
So this is it's quite a straightforward one. We have a payments solution that we think is a better dealer experience, better seller experience, and that's the Motorway Pay solution I talked about earlier. Right, we've had £7.5 billion worth of transactions through that platform, no issues at all. We'll have done probably 10 billion by the end of the year. So that just gives you a sense of the volume of transactions that are going through that, and that includes small independent dealers all the way up to like very large dealers, including franchises who are using it. So that's our preferred route. We know that that dealers are not every dealer is using that, although a huge number are now. And to run that separate system costs us money. I have a separate operational team that are chasing invoices, managing all of that process, chasing down debt, etc., etc. And as the number of people using that system goes down, that becomes more costly. And so very simply, £10 is covering that cost of that second system. Our preference, we do not want people to be charged £10 a car. And to avoid that, we really want dealers to use our payment system, which, as I said, there are hundreds, thousands of cases of dealers using it and seeing the benefits in it. And so I really encourage those dealers who are frustrated by that to use Motorway Pay. It's very simple.
Can I just say on that as well, to the original post, Rich Wilson, I use Motorway Pay. We use it in our business, and I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, we use it.
It's much better than what we're doing previously. I think it's a service that you guys do that not only benefits us, but I'm sure it benefits you, because obviously you get your fees paid in advance, which which works, which is great. I think it's much easier. It's much easier from an accountant point of view. It's much easier from a customer's point of view in the trust, because they've never heard of BM Motors or AB Motors, but they've heard the know Motorway. The Motorway is the person that they've entrusted with the sale of the car in the first place, and the trust that you're sort of managing the payment process as well. I think it works really well, and I would encourage dealers to get on it. I think it's much better than having to set up loads of different bank accounts for new customers, and like you say, if you've got a problem with your bank, a fraud payment or whatever, it just takes all that away, and you guys sort the finance out, makes it much easier. I think it's a fantastic piece of software that is used for that, so I will definitely commend you on that.
Thank you.
So moving on, Max Sansom again, another one he's actually a local guy who we've had on the pod. I think Max has just got he's just moved his showroom. I don't know if you've noticed.
Yeah, he went next door.
He has, yeah.
He's got like a new. Has he got a turntable? I don't know if he's got a turntable. He's got like
photo booth.
It's got a photo booth. It looks really well.
Looks
so
nice.
Max, if you're listening, it looks really well, mate. You're doing good. But Max has asked, will Motorway ever change from blind bidding and go to a transparent model for dealers, or is this simply down to get the most money for the customer? What does Motorway's fees look like in 5 years' time, and why does Motorway let the customer dictate their reserve price and not follow the actual trade valuations? So we'll cover that one.
Okay.
Third one's easy.
The last one we covered, I have covered that clearly. The first one about blind auctions, that's actually the fairest way to run an auction like this. One of the downsides of having a transparent bidding process is you end up bidding more, because you kind of get into this competitive mindset, and you end up with sort of buyer's dilemma. So you win it, but actually you've won it at a higher price. We would probably make more money if we had an open auction where everyone could see it, because you'd bid each other up to a higher price, and in the end you'd live to probably regret that change. So, and by the way, we've had auction experts look at our auction and give us this feedback as well. So that's why it's a blind auction. It's the fairest way to share the value in the marketplace between the seller and the buyer. It's as simple as that. And as I say, we've looked at it, and that's why we have that model. What was the second question? I've forgotten now.
What will the fees look like in 5 years' time?
I don't know how you're going to answer that.
Possibly more.
5 years is a very, very long time.
Yeah.
I hope we'll be. Yes, I can't predict that. To be honest with you, 4 years ago, will I predict where we are today? Probably not. I mean, we're much, much bigger. We've made tons of progress. As I say, there's still more to do. But yeah, in 5 years' time, I think I hope we'll have addressed a number of the issues we talked about today, and we'll be bigger and better than we are today.
Cheaper fees. In 5 years' time.
Creating more value for dealers.
Yeah, exactly.
More value for dealers.
Yeah.
What they're doing to stop scammers using the app. I think we've sort of half covered that as well, Jacob, already.
Can I pick that one up? Sorry, I think there's a point around, you made a point around scammers. So, because I know that dealers are understandably very worried about fraudulent sellers. And one of the things, again, that we do in the background that is not obvious to dealers is when we collect documentation, we're running processes to check sellers, and we use that to pick up, and we have fraud checks as well that we're running in the background. So we are aware of this issue, and it's important we solve it. And that's an ongoing process that we run, which we don't talk probably enough about to dealers, but it is something we see as important, and we're very vigilant on that issue for obvious reasons. And I think it's an industry that is a challenge that we need to make sure we're tackling together.
Craig Walker, hi Craig, from Culloden Cars. Again, another one we've had on the
That's
podcast.
who I was drinking Negronis with.
Oh, is it? Oh,
Well, he was on vodka.
he's a good lad, Craig. Craig, I've been
Yeah, he's
watching your
good lad,
YouTube
good lad.
channel, mate, as well. If you're watching it, and it provides good entertainment. I enjoy it. It's very good. He's asking, would Motorway consider publishing real stats? For example, how many dealer disputes were raised last year? How many were resolved in the dealer's favour? And average resolution time?
It's not something we plan to publish. I think what's more important as an individual dealer is that you are getting a good experience. So what it looks like for other dealers is at least from my perspective, less relevant. And yeah, so we're not planning on publishing that information. I think one of the things that I'm passionate about is making sure that we are capturing and presenting information back to dealers in a more structured way. So one of the things that I think we can do better is show some of the metrics that we've got for individual dealers in our pro platform, and you'll see some movement on that relatively soon.
Right, Mark Breen. I think this is more of a rant than a question, but I'll go through it anyway. They need to make the assured option available to non-Motorway Pay customers. They need to charge a seller if they badly misdescribe a car or refuse a reasonable reduction. I'm sick of paying for failed collections due to the sellers being idiots or messers. They need to discourage sellers trying to knowingly dump broken cars on their customers, the dealers. A simple disclaimer stating that they will assist the dealer in pursuing them if they misrepresent a car with known issues. Ask them to stop overpromising on the price that the seller will achieve. Most cars I buy are below the reserve, which makes it very hard to negotiate if there is damage that has not been listed. I think a lot of the feedback is obviously we've covered a lot of it already. It all seems to be the same sort of stuff, doesn't it? Which I know you're well aware of.
Yeah, look, it is, and I can say what I said earlier, which is we're aware of it. The feedback's important, so dealers should keep it coming, right? I mean, it's important. That's why I'm on this podcast, to get kind of feedback and have these conversations, because we do listen. We will make progress on this, and watch this space. We will make progress on this in the coming weeks and months, for sure.
Another bit of feedback, you're asking for Paul Leadbitter if they've got any plans to be more dealer focused rather than pandering to the punter. I know it's a lot of it's negative, mate, and I don't mean to just sort of bombard you with it, but you're always going to get that online as well, and especially when dealers are spending thousands and thousands of pounds on cars week in week out rather. But I just think...
I think the auctions get that, Stephen, like BC and Mannheim. It's often said, they only care about the vendor. They don't really care about the buyers. And if it wasn't for the buyers, there'd be no vendors. I think that's quite probably like auction type of gossip, isn't it? Opinions.
I think as well, though, James, you're probably well aware, like so Auto Trader, British Car Auctions, now yourselves, because you're becoming that established and that not monopolised, but you're a massive player now in the industry, and I think that the general feeling from dealers about these big brands is always negative. It's always like I'm the small guy and they're the big guy and they're there to take, and there's a lot of negativity towards those big companies. Are you aware of that?
I am aware of it. I think at the same time, what I would say is we still see thousands of dealers using the platform and buying cars and making money off those cars. And so I'm totally sympathetic and empathetic to the feedback I hear, because at the end of the day, it's the dealer's business. Yeah. Right. And when things go wrong, it's really difficult. And so they get frustrated. They're passionate about their businesses. That's great. Like that's what great business people are like, right? They're demanding. So and it's important to hear that feedback, and it keeps us on our toes. It keeps us continuing to improve. So whilst it's painful, like I'm not loving it, sitting here and getting these questions, it's important to have those questions, because if we don't have them, we're not going to keep improving, and it's pushing us to get better. All I'd say is, at the same time, there's another side of it, which is our business wouldn't exist if there weren't thousands of dealers buying thousands of cars that is helping them grow profitably. And that's the kind of counterpoint to it. So I understand that there are things we need to improve, and it's great to hit, albeit sometimes painful, to have that feedback. We will act on it, as we have in the past. But let's not forget, we sold over 500,000 cars. Yeah, that's dealers buying those cars. right? We have 7,500 dealers using the platform. That's dealers using the platform. So that's the counterpoint to some of the challenges that we've talked about today.
No, and James, I completely agree. Like I say, like with anything, anything that you use all the time and that you're comfortable with and that's working for you, you're always going to find nitty picky things that you want to improve on, aren't you? And when you don't have the power to do that, you sort of blame the higher powers to be. Why aren't you doing this for us? Why aren't you doing that for us? And I know, Scott knows, Mark knows how difficult it is to run an operation on a national scale and looking after so many people, and that we're just small fry to start with in comparison to you guys, the investment you've got. I mean, all the staff that you've got. It must be such a juggernaut to have to turn around to implement things when you know that you're getting that feedback and you're listening to it all the time and that you want to do something about it. And it takes time, doesn't it? It's you can't just implement these changes quickly.
It does take time, but it's, as I said earlier, it's important to hear the feedback, because we don't have a right for that custom. We don't have the right for dealers to use our platform. We've got to earn it every minute of every hour of every day. That's what I say to my teams, right? And we've got to remember that dealers are using us to help grow their businesses. And if they don't feel we're doing that, they're not going to use our platform. It's very simple. Mm-hmm. So that's the focus we've got to have. And it's relentless, because the standards that our customers expect, and that's dealers, and it's also the sellers, the private individuals selling their cars, just keeps going up, right? And if we don't keep moving with that, we won't succeed in the long term. That's what's got us to where we are today, right? And if we lose sight of that, we won't succeed in the future. We're not going to lose sight of it. So that's for me the really important thing. In the next 5 years, to answer the point to one of your one of the folks on the Facebook group, we need to keep doing what we've been doing, which is responding to the customer feedback to deliver better and better experiences that our customers rightly expect. And if we keep doing that, keep staying focused on that, we'll build a really successful business, and we'll support lots and lots of dealers be successful as well. And that's what we've got to stay focused on as a business. And and by the way, for dealers, it's the same for dealers, right? You've got to think about your customers. If you're delivering great experiences to your customers, buying the right cars, helping sell those cars in the right way, that's going to help you grow your dealership. It's this true for all businesses.
Can I ask a question? Just obviously, how do you? Because you're privy to a lot of data that obviously we're not privy to, and what have you. What challenges in sort of things on the horizon can you see from happening in the world and what have you that's going to affect the motor trade? Is there anything that you're sitting back going, oh, this could be really challenging? What sort of things can you see occurring in the next couple of years?
It's difficult to say. I think if you look at the macroeconomy, there are a number of indicators that don't look particularly positive going into next year. I think that being said, I don't think we're going to see a big slowdown. I think it's likely to continue to be a stable market. It's been more stable recently. I know there's been ups and downs and fluctuations. Stable never means stable for everybody. But I think looking ahead, we should have a decent market going into next year. But there's definitely some clouds on the horizon from a macroeconomic perspective. And what that will mean is for dealers is you've got to sharpen the pencil, and you've got to be really efficient in the way that you run your business. How you source the stock, how you price the stock, what the experiences you deliver for your customers. So there's that. I think one kind of slightly more uplifting, more positive take on it is, I'm very passionate about the impact that technology can have. So I've talked about in other forums, I've talked about AI, and I know for smaller deals, and we talked. I think Stephen, we have talked about it, or Scott, I can't remember. It's some independents might look at it and go, well, I don't have a tech team. How do I do this? I think one of the powers of these technologies is you don't need a tech team, and I think it can unlock opportunity. So particularly for small independents, I'm quite passionate and I'm quite an advocate for using these kind of chatbots to enable you to have service all the time. So when you're not available, you've got that switched on. A customer can ask questions. You can keep them in the process. You can then push that into, send a message to them, and you don't lose that customer. And about 30% of inquiries are happening out of hours when you run these solutions. And so I'm quite passionate about helping dealers understand that better, because it's a new thing, and I think it can actually be quite powerful for them. But you need to kind of educate yourself a little bit on how it works and how you can use it. But I think there's a huge potential there.
I think there's huge potential in it. I've looked into it, and I've tried a few of the different chatbots with the AI behind them. I must admit, I wasn't confident in them to use them from your own business yet. I don't think they're quite there, but I definitely think in a year or two's time there will be.
I think what we've learned. So we have a virtual assistant that's a text-based chatbot.
Yeah,
you've got to think of it like an employee.
Yeah.
Okay. But it's an employee that's available 24/7, doesn't eat, doesn't sleep, all the other stuff that, is challenging sometimes the employee. But you've got to manage them and see what they're doing and help them, train them. But once you put a bit of time into it, you'd be amazed how impactful it can be. And it can be very basic questions that you're going to miss, or you're not going to take the call because you're out in the forecourt doing something. That's why it's powerful. But you've got to put a bit of investment in to get it up and running and to train it. And if you do it, it can be very, very powerful. But one of the things, I think we're going to publish a guide on this, because I've spoken to dealers and I've spoken to some of the providers, and just to try and share some ideas how you get started. And my view on this is the way you get started is to speak to some of the providers like you've done, Stephen. You speak to them and you may just sort of decide it's not quite right for me. That's okay. Make an active decision. Right? Make an active decision not to do it or to do it, but don't just sit back and say, "Oh, it's not for me, I'm not going to bother," because your competitors will. Right? Yeah. Other people will start using it, and then you'll be behind. And what we found is once you get going, you learn so much, and you just work out the things that are problematic, solve those. Meanwhile, the person that's not done it, or the dealership that's not done it, hasn't got any of that learning. So the learning curve is quite steep on this stuff. So I think the starting point is not to try and do it all yourself. It's speak to some of the providers out there, see what they can do for you, and then make your decisions whether you want to proceed or not.
James, have you got any things coming in the pipeline for consumers, when they're photographing the cars and, they miss certain bits? I was speaking to a company, and they've got I think they're from France, and they've got this development where you'd video the car quite close up. You probably came across it, and I'm not saying it works out the damage, but it's very precise on damage and things like that. Is there anything in the pipeline where you would, provide better, some kind of a better system for the consumers? Because I think with the motorway, if you're going to ask, what's the biggest strain is getting to the customer and they haven't described it right. Is there anything from your end where you can? Yeah,
we've definitely we've looked at that from time to time, and it's always trying to explore how we can make that photography more accurate. The few things that we found when we've tested it in the past is it's effective for very obvious damage. The accuracy level is not as high consistently as you'd want. So I think one of the things, and this is true for AI more generally, which is you need to be measuring accuracy, and you need to work out what is the right level of accuracy that you want. So even if you're using the ChatGPT, it will come back with an answer. Is it coming back with the accurate answer every single time? What's the percentage accuracy level you've got? And what we found with some of the AI tools is that accuracy level is not at the level that we'd expect, that our dealers would expect of us. Because what you don't, and our sellers would expect, because what you don't want to be doing is misdescribing stuff. But there's definitely some opportunity there to test and learn from the new tools that are coming out. Because things are moving quickly. But our experience, and I have a live example, which again is something that will go live for dealers relatively soon, where we're using large language models and what's called machine vision, so looking at pictures and using large language models to create data. It's taken us a bit longer to roll it out because we ran tests on accuracy. It just wasn't quite where it needed to be, and we had to keep training it. Like I said to Stephen earlier, keep training it to get that accuracy level up, and then we're like, okay, that's now good enough. We can release that to the dealer base or to the seller base. We feel good about it.
James, I'm interested because obviously you've came from a different background in the motor trade, but obviously you've learned very quickly, and you've spoken to lots of dealers up and down the country, and you've probably looked at the retail side of the motor dealer market. Is there anything that you see? I know you're not an outsider now, but I'll call you as an outsider. as an outsider, you've never been a car dealer. Is there anything when you look at a retail operation from an independent car dealer that you think they're missing a trick here somewhere, or any sort of I suppose the question I'm getting at is, what would you do different if you were to go and set up your own independent car dealership?
I think it's probably there's probably an opportunity around using data and using that to really understand the profitability of different channels and the profitability of vehicles, looking at the end-to-end cost and allocating those costs accurately. I think that's quite hard in any business, but there's something around that, and using how you use that then to inform the way you purchase and buy vehicles, and then retail them. So there's definitely something around the data side of things. I think it's moved a long way, even in the 4 years I've been in this industry. But I think there's probably, I don't want to sound like, I mean, I'm not an expert on that, but I feel there's something there when I talk to dealers about, okay, but talk to me about the relative profitability of these different channels you're using. Talk to me about the relative profitability of the vehicles, and have you allocated the costs right the way down to the true profitability? I sometimes find that that's not happening. And I'm like, are you sure you're making therefore the right decisions?
Mm-hmm.
As I say, hard, but with new technology, that may be an opportunity. I think what always strikes me is the dealers that I meet are very commercial, and I enjoy that because they care about their customers and they care about trading hard, and they're very, very focused on delivery. I think one of the things might be, as you look further ahead, are you building the foundations for how your dealership needs to evolve over time? And so maybe it's stepping back and just say, okay, beyond the day-to-day trading, which is incredibly intense and requires a huge amount of time, just taking a moment, just look ahead and go, okay, well, as the question was earlier, like, where do we want to be in a couple of years' time, and are we building the right capabilities and the right team to get us to that point? Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely good. Well, obviously, time's getting on now. We've kept you for a while, James. But I'd be amiss not to put this question to you as well, which Tom Carlisle's put in the Facebook group. It's nothing bad on him, but can you ask him why they won't let us have an account? They said to us that you don't qualify for an account. I think I've known a few people get the same treatment. No real reason. Apparently, he says he's got a showroom location. They can verify on Google Maps, Google reviews of their business, active stock listed available for them to see, and they've got trade insurance, a VAT number, and a company's house listing. And I've had a couple of private messages about that as well. A couple of dealers saying that they aren't able to get an account.
I know Tom Carlisle. He mentioned that to me.
Why is that then? Why is that? Why would that be happening to a dealer? I know you're not going to. I know you're not going to know by individual cases, but just in general, what would be the reasons why you wouldn't?
I don't know. I can't comment on those individual cases. I'm happy to, if you share the details, I'm happy to follow up on those. I mean, look, we want to make sure we have legitimate dealerships on the platform. We have a lot of people who want to use our platform who are not legitimate dealers. So we're screening out lots of applications of people who want access to the stock for obvious reasons, right? So we do have criteria, but I mean, if you share the details, I can look into those ones.
Right, I'll do that. Hopefully, that might help Tom out, because I know he's definitely a legitimate dealer, so might be a good thing to come of that. But I think we'll leave it there. James, I'd just like to thank you for coming on. I know we've posed some difficult questions to you, and it maybe seemed like you're coming into Lion's Den, but I knew you'd take it in good faith. But I really appreciate your time and your efforts for it. I think it's an interesting one for people to watch, and I think you've done really well with that. And I'd just like to say as well, it's not all doom and gloom. Like I said before about the Motorway Pay thing, I use Motorway for my business. We are very profitable by using Motorway. It's overtaken auctions that we used to use. And yes, there is a few teething problems and issues here and there, and there are some costs that I would rather not pay around cancellations. But overall, for my business, Motorway is definitely a driver of business. So you're doing something right, and I think it's a good thing. I don't know if Scott says the same, but I imagine he would.
100%. Yeah, I was like 13-14 years just buying from auctions, because obviously Motorway was relatively new, and but my two buyers, I mean, we buy very few from auction now. We use that as a bit of backup, a little bit of when we're struggling through Motorway or CarWow as well. We're probably a bit of a mix on where we get them from, but the only problems we have, I suppose, like something to say on the podcast with the likes of BCA and Mannheim, speaking to you fine. We always get good service, and the same with yourselves and Motorway. COO competitor. Always get good service. The only bit which would be the one which is what everybody moans about is when you turn up to get the car and it's not as described. But it is what it is.
No one gives you better service than Dealerway, though.
Yeah, exactly.
Without a doubt. Without a doubt. Martin, when Dealerway launched a year ago, James was like, "Poof, we heard these coming in here." Industry disruptors.
I'll be honest with you, I don't understand why it's took him so long. He still hasn't offered to buy out yet. It's crazy.
We're not for sale,
That's
Stephen.
the call we're waiting for.
It's not for sale.
But
we turned Auto Trader's offer down.
you turned the whole shit us up. But yeah, anyways, James, listen, really appreciate you coming on, and I'd love to get you back on maybe in 6 months to a year's time, and then you can tell more about how you've rectified all these problems.
No, thanks very much. No, I enjoyed it. It's good to get the feedback. Good to have the discussion.
Yeah.
Hopefully, I've addressed a number of the questions that were raised. And thanks very much. Really
Definitely,
enjoyed it.
thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, James.
Thanks, everyone.
Lovely.
We'll see you next
Thank
time.
you.
Thank
Cheers,
you.
guys.
Thanks.